Hello and welcome to today's episode of the Work at Home Rockstar podcast. Very excited for today's guest. He is the CEO of Helix Sales Development. And what he does, he helps small, medium-sized businesses to fix their sales team with talent, a culture of accountability, and the systems to make it repeatable. Super excited to be rocking out today with Walter Crosby. Hey, Walter, you ready to rock?
I am, Tim. Excited to be here.
Awesome. So we always start off on a good note here. So tell me a story of success in your business that we can be inspired by.
Um, how about I go back to 1998 and I got promoted to a sales director, international sales director gig at a Christmas party. Bosses came and said, "Hey, can you meet us at the bar?" And I looked at my wife and I'm like, "Hey, this is either going to be really good or really bad. So grab your purse." So went over there, had a drink, and they offered me this position. And on the way home, I was explaining it to her, and you know, they wanted me to manage five guys on the team, grow revenue, all the stuff you're supposed to do as a sales manager. And she looked at me, she goes, "That's great. You ever managed anybody before? Like you have trouble managing yourself." So she kind of threw a wet blanket on top of it, but she was 100% right. So, and it happens to a lot of salespeople, right? If you're a performer, the boss thinks you can take those skills and transfer over here and help the other folks on the team. And I really had no idea what I was going to do. I had a couple of weeks to try to get my legs under me, but it was a journey of about 3 or 4 years of just really studying, trying to get out there and going. Figuring out what a sales manager is supposed to do, how do they create accountability, and how do they make it fun. So that, and it turned out to be we grew revenue 120% over the course of 3 years. It was
Wow.
good.
Wow, right on. Yeah, your wife sounds like mine. Like a little dose of quality, eh?
Yeah, she's really smart. We have to question her judgment by who she married, but she really helps. She's the opposite of me, right? I like to live on the edge, and she's pretty conservative and when it comes to taking risk and money. So it's a good balance, you know.
Yeah, I would highly suggest that to any entrepreneur on this call to find a wife like that or a spouse like that.
Yeah.
Because we all tend to be the same, right? We're all fly by the seat of our pants entrepreneurs, right? And you need somebody in your corner that's going to be like, sure. Because really, it just helps you to solidify your idea.
It helps you solidify your idea. But they also, I mean, she's really supportive. Like, you're crazy, but if you think you can do that, and then she'll help me discern whether it's the right direction or the right steps. It's a I don't know. She brings a different perspective to it, and no matter what it is, right? Whether it's raising a daughter or running a business or you know managing the books. I'm not a finance guy. She's a CPA auditor, forensic accountant person. So there's a couple times a month where I get yelled at a lot about like, why'd I do that? But it's part of the deal.
Good deal. And I mean, you mentioned another thing too. Like, I mean, part of the reason why I even started this podcast in the first place is because a lot of people do decide they want to be self-employed because they're great at what they do. And then they all of a sudden start a business, and running a business is not the same as doing what you do, right? Like,
It is
how do
not.
you how do you make that comparison?
Well, there's a book out there that's been around for a long time called The E-Myth by Michael Gerber. And he describes the crazy people like entrepreneurs who go out and start a business, right? The one I remember from the book is the mechanic who's a great mechanic, right? Everybody says you're amazing at this. You can hear something and then you just go fix it. And then he opens up a shop and he fails, not because he's not a great mechanic, but he doesn't know how to pay the bills. He doesn't know how to market the business. He doesn't know how to manage the flow of cars that are coming in and make too many promises. So that technician component, we're really good at something, but then we need that help, right? To be able to look at the whole picture. And just because you open a business, put a sign up, put a website up on the internet doesn't guarantee anything.
So now imagine if you were talking to somebody who was that mechanic. They were very good at what they do. They want to start a business. would you suggest they start a business? And if you did, what would you suggest that they do to make sure that that was going to be successful?
I would I would ask them if they understand what running a business is, right? It wouldn't be a discouraging conversation, but it would be a real conversation, right? It would be about, do you understand that, you have to pay the rent, you have to, you're going to have people that are answering the phone, because if you're underneath a car or your head's under a hood and the phone rings and nobody answers it, how do you get business in the door? So there's a bunch of things that we don't think about, and I'm going to say we because, I'm part of that, that you really need to contemplate. And I had a conversation with somebody, it was a couple months ago at a party, and they were like, ready to go do this thing full time. I'm like, awesome, right? How are you going to get business in? Like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, you got to go find new people to generate the revenue, right? Oh, well, um, I'll have a website. Awesome. Like, how do you tell people about it? Right? It's having that kind of a conversation with somebody that doesn't deflate their dream, but it's like, realize that it's not a walk in the park. I'm unemployable at this point in my life. I couldn't go work for somebody full time. I mean, I have many clients that I do different things with, but I have to have that relationship and be able to communicate. But going and working for somebody after you've done what we've done for ourselves, it sort of feels constrained or put in a box. And I think that if you're not ready to make that leap out of the job, then there's nothing wrong with having a job that you're happy at and you're good at.
I agree for sure. And I mean, part of what you might need to do to make that work is, find maybe some people that you can start the business with that have those skills that you maybe not don't have. Because in that mechanic that's really awesome what they do, maybe they do have a great name, but they're still gonna need somebody to manage things, right? They're still gonna need somebody to manage the schedules and answer the phones while they're doing the amazing work that they do, right?
And it's possible to hire that person that has those skills. But if you don't know what those skills are, you don't know what that person's supposed to do. Like creating a job description and listing all the things that they do is important, but what do they need to do every day that's going to help you move the needle? How are they supposed to talk to those customers? How are they supposed to treat them? Just because you're in a bad mood, right, and you come in and you're upset about something that happened the night before, those customers don't care. Right. So you got to be able, that person's got to be able to elevate, give a great customer experience. And if you haven't dealt with that before, and will often give somebody responsibilities that they're not is not fair to them, because we're
Yeah,
asking them to do something that they're not good at.
yeah.
Um, Asking the bass player to go play drums may work out, but it may not, right? Because it's a different instrument.
Well, yeah, I mean, I've been in this situation before looking at businesses, and one of the things that I think probably shocks them is I would often say, "Well, that's your fault. It's not their fault. You went and got them to go play, like you say, you got the drummer to go play bass, and he totally screwed it up. Now you're blaming the him? Like,
Right.
no, you're the one who put him on that instrument." That happens oftentimes when you put a person who is maybe that amazing mechanic, and now you put them on sales or on customer support. Come on, they might not have those, the words to be able to speak to the customers in the way that the customer wants to be spoken to, right?
Or the patience to deal with that, going from B to B to B to C, right? That's a whole different animal in and of itself. So having those skill sets, or at least being willing to learn those skill sets and be aware that you need to elevate that part of your game if you're going to switch from drums to bass. I mean, there's some commonalities, right? You got to have some rhythm and
Mhm.
understand where you are and help the rest of the guys in the band stay on spot. But I don't know. You have to be aware. And I will tell an entrepreneur at the beginning of a relationship, when they're all excited to go forward, I'll say something like, "You want to know why this won't work?" And they're like, what do you mean?" I'm like, "Let me tell you what will happen here." And I'll give them a story about what was likely to happen in the situation that we're in and why it'll fail. And it usually comes down to them making a decision about what they do in that moment. Either they back the decision to go ahead and create some structure or put a process in. Somebody's going to challenge that in the organization. And if they're not prepared to deal with that in advance, it all falls apart. And it's I've seen it happen. It's tough. So I like to try to prepare everybody in advance.
Yeah, and I think that's overall, I think that there's a lack of understanding of what it takes to really run a business, and I think that that kind of translates to people kind of saying, "Well, I'm doing the work." The guy at the bottom's doing all the work, right? And he feels like he's being taken advantage of because the guy at the top looks like he's just sitting at his desk, right? And you're sort of going like, "What? Come on, really? How come that guy's making so much more money than I am when I'm doing all the work?" But there really is a lack of understanding of there is a fair bit of stuff, and you only really get to know that when you try to do it yourself and you realize, "Oh, geez, I'm spinning all these plates all at the same time and they're all falling," right?
I think the easy way to explain that to that person who realizes, I'm doing all this work, quote unquote, and this guy's making all the money. Have they ever made payroll in their life? Have they ever had to sweat out making payroll for a team of people and be concerned about that? There's a lot of pressure on an entrepreneur to they're taking a risk. We talked about that a minute ago, right? We're really creating a bunch of risk for ourselves, and we're putting our face out front. So, if that person's not taking that same level of risk, they don't get the same share of the profits, right? They get the value that they're bringing to the party. I tried to explain that to my daughter when she was younger, and she got it. Where her first job, you're getting paid your service, your smile, your ability to engage with the customers. That's what the boss is paying you for. And you get to take your skills down the street and leave, but while you're there, you have to provide that person value. And it comes down to whatever that skill is, whether it's designing a website or just the ability to make a customer in a restaurant comfortable that they're waiting an extra 5 minutes to get a table, right? It's a unique skill. And that's what they bring to the party. And they don't get to take 10% off the top of the revenue for the night. They get paid what they get paid.
Yeah, exactly. So now, not everything goes as planned, and there are some bad notes that you get hit along the way. And can you share with me something that didn't go as planned, something that just kind of blew up in your face, and how you recovered?
Um, yeah, there's I kind of the story I just told you about telling a entrepreneur at the beginning how something fails. Um, I early on when I started the practice, it was you kind of take jobs that you maybe wouldn't take later just because you want to get some revenue going. And this guy wanted to do training for his sales team, and that was where he wanted to start. And I had training. I could do that. I could provide this to the team, and that wasn't an issue. But I was like, is that where we should start? Like, do we have the right people on the team? Are they doing the right things, right? Like, are we going to train them on something? Because I just wanted to training. So I did that, and it didn't move the needle. So is that his fault, my fault, the team's fault? And I think the answer is yes. But I look at it as for myself, I shouldn't have done that. I should have said no. And because I did, we didn't have success, and I don't have a good story there. But there wasn't a culture there of accountability. There wasn't a culture for that training to set and have a place to grow. And so I'm this weird sales training development guy that doesn't believe in doing training out of the box, right? So that it sort of helped me get there, and it took me a little bit of a journey. Things didn't go as well, so now I realize I know what works. If somebody doesn't want to do it the way I know it works, then maybe it's not a good fit. and
Wow.
accepting that and moving on is, I think, the right thing to do for everybody.
Yeah. And I mean, that's such a relatable story because I've been in that situation so many times where you take a job that you really shouldn't be taking. Not only that, but maybe sometimes you might take a job and actually do something that you wouldn't normally do because that's what they want. And you feel like it's like, well, I mean, they're paying me, so that's what they want, so that's what I'll do. But
Mm,
I don't think it's that, right? I mean, we're the expert in our field. So if someone says, I want to do something and you know it's not going to work, or it's not the right way to do it, or it's not the way that you would normally do it, it's your job to kind of stick up and say, no, you know what? If that's what you want to do, you can find somebody else. But if you want success, this is what we do, right?
yeah, and you have to be willing to have that uncomfortable conversation, and it could be done professionally and politely. We don't have to call each other names, but at the same time, you have to be able to say, I don't think your approach is going to work, and I'd rather not participate in that. So, I wish you well, and part as friends, and maybe they come back to you later. If you give them the ability to kind of save face, sometimes they come back, not always. Sometimes they
Yep.
come back and say, you might have been right.
I've had a situation or two where they've come back afterwards and said, yeah, I've realized what's going on. Or they might even if you take I've had people who have I've refused to do it for whatever reason. They go off, they hire somebody else, it just falls apart, and then they're back. So,
Yeah.
I mean, it takes a while. I mean, sometimes it takes a couple of years for that to even happen, but, you gotta stick to your guns, and you'll feel better about it if you do, right?
You feel better as an entrepreneur, and then you feel bad about, like, that was X number of dollars that would have been nice to have. But I think if you and it's hard to do at the beginning, but if you stick to your guns and you do what you believe is the right thing to do, and develop a phrase that I've been doing this a while, and I know what works and I know what doesn't work, and being able to stand by that and not fall back or not give in, I think is the right thing to do.
Yeah. I almost think I would recommend that people actually do it and make that mistake on their own so they can see,
Oh,
maybe
best lesson.
limit the damage, right?
Well, I mean,
But
the best lessons are the ones that we get our nose bloodied a little bit, right? Those are oh, I don't pick on guys that are 6'3" and 250 pounds when I'm not. It, it's somehow, especially with entrepreneurs, sometimes we need the tough lesson. But it's hopefully you don't lose a ton of dough on that or lose reputation.
yeah, that's what I'm thinking if there's something that you're probably gonna lose a little you might lose a little bit of money, do it because you'll make the mistake, you'll realize what's going on. But yeah, don't I mean, if it's a huge project and you're gonna end up because I mean, there are situations where you can lose a lot of money and you could have to refund. Like, there's a whole load of stuff that could happen that would be bad, right?
Yeah.
So, but now, so let's think a little bit about practicing and getting good at what you do. Like, do you have any sort of routines, rituals? Like, how do you approach staying sharp?
Um, I think it's about consistency and practice. I've been in sales for over 30 years, and the and I don't think, I mean, things don't stay the same, right? There's always a little change to things and how we approach it and modifications because the world changes. But all that being true, we need to practice our craft, whatever it is. So, I think having a mindset that we're going to learn and we're going to consistently have to stay sharp. If we don't have that, and there's no way to be successful because you're going to get stagnant and not grow. So if we want to be a leader in our space, if we want to be a thought leader, if we want to be just really good at what we do, we have to stay sharp. And in some ways to do that, depending upon where you are in sales, it's everybody hates doing role plays. Everybody hates doing a role play of, like, all right, you're the customer and I'm the prospect, and we're going to work this out. That's the safe place to screw up. That's the place to be able to to work it out, right? Like when they go do a Broadway show, they don't just show up on opening night and hope it all works out. There's like lots of work that goes into it. The prize fighter who wins the fight, like, oh, he won the fight in like 6 minutes. No, his whole life was around that, getting there. He practiced. You didn't see all of the things that occurred. So the mindset, I think, is the first thing. If you don't have that mindset, I want to be a continuous learner, and then you're not willing to do the practice, the work, you're not gonna get better. And if you got to make that a habit.
Hi, it's Mark Mawhinney from Natural Born Coaches, and I want to give two very big thumbs up to Tim Melanson and his Creative Crew agency. I have been using them for a long time, and I am 100% happy. They get the job done right, they're fast, and they let me focus on my business. I don't have to worry about anything. So again, I want to give them two very big thumbs up. I have no problem recommending them. I don't give testimonials for everyone because my name is attached to it, but I gladly do so for Tim and the Creative Crew agency. So use them, you won't regret it, and good luck.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, people don't see all the work that goes into that one performance, right? And it's the same for us. And you know what? The world, especially now, changes super fast. So you might be just, trucking away at something that's working, and then all of a sudden it's not. And if you haven't been kind of ear to the ground looking at what's going on, then you might not notice that. Next thing you know, you're behind, right?
Oh, 100%. If you're not paying attention and just being aware of what's going on around you, you're going to get past. It's a race, and it's hard and tough. It's hard. It is what it is. If you don't want to, if you don't want to take on that risk and do that work, then there's other roles that would be a better fit.
Yeah. And I would say that if that makes you excited, like it makes me excited, and probably you too, then you're an entrepreneur and you'll be fine. I mean, I
Yep.
like that challenge myself. And I think there's a lot of people that do. So this is not turning you away, then you're in the right path. Let's keep
Yeah,
moving, right?
100%. 100%.
Now, work from home can be a challenge in a lot of ways, but one of those ways is finding a space where you can get your work done and setting up that, I call it a jam room. So tell me like how do you have your jam room set up and how would you suggest we set ours up?
Well, I don't know. I'm a little weird. I've been working remotely like before COVID. I've been, in sales, you learn to work where you are, whether that's in your car at a parking lot or at a coffee shop or a diner. So what I've done is sort of evolved over the years, and I've set it up so that I'm away from my house, but I'm still on my property. So I built a cigar lounge in my pole barn, right? And I did that years ago just so I had a place to go have a cigar with friends and listen to music and just have conversations with people. And when I when my wife decided she wanted to be remote and work a little hybrid, like being in the same place, like listening to each other's conversations, and you know, it just wasn't going to work. So I think having some space that's quiet and that's yours, having a desk that is, um, it gives you the ability to do what you need to do, right? Some of us like paper, some of us like digital, some of us want, we need more than one screen. So it's just having that comfortable space. So I have a desk that goes up and down, so I can go up and down. I have multiple screens, so I can look at things and have, my eyes are, just can kind of shift a little bit from one spot to the other, and I can have conversations with people. I can put my notes in while I'm talking to somebody, and having cameras at the right level with the right lighting. It's just setting it up so that you don't have to worry and you can be comfortable. And I think that's the key, is to be comfortable.
Agree. Yeah, I've been working from home for quite a while too, long before COVID. And when all the lockdowns happened, and then all of a sudden my wife was working from home, we did try the same office once for a little while. Did not work very well. calls going on at different times and super distracting. And you can't just put up a cubicle wall. Like I don't even understand how cubicles even work in the workplace. But yeah, having a door and having a separate office is definitely a lot more comfortable, you know, for
It
sure.
it's last year we were in Florida for a couple of months, and the condo didn't have 3 bedrooms or 2 bedrooms, right? It was just like the right size condo for vacation in Florida. So we were sitting and we were working. So we're sitting at the dining room table with her at one end and I'm at the other. And it's not one of those like medieval dining room tables where like, it's 20 feet long.
Yeah,
We were right, 8 feet apart from each other. And
yeah, like
we
Battleship.
exactly. So and she has a lot of meetings where she does a lot of talking, and I do as well. So I was switching from Zoom meetings to phone meetings so I could go outside and just walk around and have different environments. But so if you're not comfortable, you're not going to perform as well, depending upon your work, right? You might need some privacy to make the kind of phone calls you need to make, or some deep thinking about a topic. If you're coding, or if you're just writing, doing something creative, you need the space to let your brain go and work on it. Sometimes that's outside, sometimes you can go to the park and kind of do that, but you need a workspace that's comfortable, that gives you what you need. And it for me, it sort of evolved over time.
So now, seems like you've got a lot of experience. You've got a lot of things going on. However, how did you get there? Did you learn from other people? Did you figure it all out yourself? Like, how did you get to the point where you're at right now?
I, I have the mindset where like I know very little, and I have to keep sharp. So I've tried to surround myself with mentors, somebody that is better at something than I am, and keep that, whether that's a friend group or a specific mentor about a specific thing that I'm trying to get better at. So I've had people in my life that were able to help me, that coached me on personal issues. I've had people coach me on professional things. I'm part of groups that are like-minded. We all entrepreneurs, so we all go our own way, and we all do our own thing, and we all think we're right. Especially I got one group in my mind that there's 300 of us that do something very similar, but nobody does it the same way. So it's a great place to collaborate and learn and take a little kernel of something um, that's helpful in your business. But I think the biggest thing that you get from people that do something that you do, especially in the sales world, sometimes you just need a kick in the ass. And somebody just needs to point out, you're not doing the work. You didn't do what you've always done. That's why you're not getting the results. And hearing it from somebody you respect is painful, but really, really helpful to get you over the hump. And I think having that, those people may change over time, right? As you grow, you need to grow your mentors. They don't necessarily go out of your life, but you need to adapt. Um, but I've always had a group of people like that in my life where I could have a conversation about a specific thing, and it's a give and take, right? Because if you build that, you should be able to add value to them as well. And I just think that's an important part.
100%. Like, I think that a lot of us have friends that are super maybe supportive, and they'll just kind of not really want to tell you like it is. They just want to make you feel good all the time. And that's great, except that it doesn't really push you to any boundaries, because if everybody always says that you're doing great when you even know that you're not doing great, then that's not going to get you to the next level, right?
100%. I have a friend from college. Um, he's been a friend for a long time, and he's a sales guy. and he's been a sales guy since he graduated like I was. And I was struggling a couple of months ago with some things going on in my personal life, but I hadn't sold something for like 6 weeks. I just hadn't had a win. And I was talking to him about it. He listened, and he says, you're not asking me for any advice. And I'm like, yeah, I'm open to whatever you got to say. He's like, doesn't matter what, go sell something. Just go get a win. That's all you need. You just get a win and you'll break through. And I kind of noodled around with that for the rest of the night. And the next day I just started looking at where I had opportunities to go get a win. And I got a win the next day. And it was that little bit of a kick in the pants, or somebody pointing out the obvious thing that you can't see.
Yeah,
And you
and
need those
sometimes,
people in your life.
yeah, and sometimes you do have this idea of what that win should be. You're looking for the big fish, right? When sometimes, you've got to work yourself up to the big fish, right?
Or you just, in my case, I just needed something to get me over the hump. And it was like, as soon as that happened, I was like, man, I'm back. And I called my buddy Scott and said it worked. And and I think that's part of it, right? Once you have those people in your life, you need to loop back when they've helped you and give them the feedback, because that's meaningful to the other side, right? If somebody's helped you and they did it willingly, the gratitude is their reward. And they feel good because they helped.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I like what you're saying, and I mean, it reminds me of the big fish in the little pond versus the little fish in the big pond. And a lot of people want to live in a world where they're the big fish in the little pond, and they go find these little ponds where they can be the big fish. But you don't grow that way, right? I mean, it's probably important to have both ponds where you can go to from time to time. Uh, but you need to always put yourself in a big pond from time to time in order to grow, right?
Well, the ocean's pretty big, and there's various depths and various aspects of it. And I think you need to be able to maneuver through all of that and be able to take those challenges. And you might not be ready to go take on a great white, but work your way up. And if you don't keep getting better and keep challenging yourself, and you don't keep living that vision as an entrepreneur, you had a vision, right? And you may change your vision, you may modify it, but if you're not working towards it, you're going to get stagnant and you're going to lose your passion, and that's what drives us.
Love it. Okay, so it's time for your guest solo. So tell me what's exciting in your business right now.
I'm actually really excited about this. I'm doing something that we call a 5-day challenge. And what it is, it's free for business owners and senior sales executives. And what I do is I teach them everything they need to know how to hire sales superstars, so they can hire their first or their next sales superstar. And it's a process that's repeatable. It's different than how they're doing it. So the premise is that if you're running a business, if you're hiring your salespeople the same way you hire an admin or an engineer or somebody manufacturing, you're making a mistake. Because salespeople, I can say this because I am one, we're weird, we're different. Our job is different. So when you hire that executive assistant, there's nobody in your company, or there shouldn't be anybody in your company, that's trying to screw up her success. There's nobody there that's kind of moving papers around and telling her to do X and she really should be doing Y. In the outside world, there's nobody that's making her life difficult. There's nobody coming along telling her no. There's nobody coming along saying that you can't do your job that way. In sales, we constantly run into resistance. We constantly run into somebody that's hostile, right? Or we have to get past something. So there's a bunch of aspects to that. So I get in there and I teach that mindset change, and then we work through what they need to do different to screen and interview people, how they should do it, how should be some structure to it, take out the bias. And at the end, they have an opportunity to go do something different. I'm around to help them if they want help, but they have the tools to go make a difference and hire better sales talent.
Extremely insightful. And it's exactly right. And like I'm assuming, so a lot of people that might have be a solopreneur or whatever, we're doing all the sales on our own. So is this something that would help somebody who wants to kind of get away from doing the sales by themselves? Maybe they want to find a sales team in a small business.
So if you're a solopreneur and you're the salesperson, right, and you're out there, this will resonate because you're a little weird too as a solopreneur, right? Because you're out there on taking risks and you're telling your story. But often what that person struggles with is taking the story that they do naturally that they don't even think about, and then being able to give that to a salesperson or a sales team, right? So we can help them take that out of their head and put it on a good company story, good messaging that they can share with the team, so the salespeople will follow the same type of story and have similar success. There's things that business owners and entrepreneurs can do that salespeople can't, right? It's just that's a fact because we're the leader, we're out there, we carry a little gravitas. But a mistake that entrepreneurs make in that first hire is that, oh, this guy's really personable and he's made me feel comfortable, and he assumes that that salesperson knows what to talk about with customers. They assume that that person has it all figured out, and they don't. Right? We want some, and they assume that if they have experience in my industry, that will solve all of these problems, and it won't, because you're different. And if you're really trying to differentiate from your customers, and you're trying to differentiate from your competitors, and you don't tell the salespeople what that sounds like and what that is, they're not going to know, and they're going to stumble around doing what they've always done, talking about product, talking about doing demos, and they're not going to have success. And it's not the salesperson's fault if we don't give them the tools. We just say, go. And that's what happens a lot. And it's there's no malice involved. The entrepreneur thinks that the salesperson is going to have it all figured out. And, there's 6% of all the salespeople on the planet that are what we would consider elite, right? That they're really good at their craft. They've practiced, they have the right mindset, and they have all the competencies. 6%. So the likelihood of you attracting that person without the right process and right way to talk to them is fairly low. And 58% of the salespeople are average or worse. We don't want them on our team. So the odds are against us. You need an advantage.
Awesome. Okay, so how do we find out more about how to get onto this program?
So I have the program. I'm going to start in mid-July. We're going to do one in each month. They'll be sort of in the middle to the end of the month. It's a 5-day challenge. So they show up once a week for an hour, and we just give them all the information. We help them. It's not really a fire hose, but it's helping them see that they need to change how they do it. So there's I shared a link with you that you can share. It's free for your audience to sign up, and they'll if they miss the first one, they can sign up for the second one. They can take it more than once if they want. That's the plan. I'm
Yeah, I'll put
excited.
the link in the show notes for you for sure.
Awesome. And if they have questions, they can reach out to me on LinkedIn or my website, helixsalesdevelopment.com, and we're happy to answer questions.
Love it. And if you're watching on YouTube, then Helix Sales Development is right on the screen right now. We can see it next to you. So that's awesome. Thank you so much for rocking out with me today, Walter. This has been a lot of fun.
It was a I do a lot of podcasts, and I love the ones where we do something like this. We have a conversation that helps your audience, and hopefully we did that today.
Me too. Awesome. And to the listeners, make sure you subscribe, rate, and comment, and we'll see you next time on the Work at Home Rockstar podcast.